Urban Media Today talks sports with Ray Porter Jr., Vince Butts, and Trevin A. Jones on Urban Media Today Radio.
It's game time! It's Urban Media Today talks sports. Trevin A. Jones. Did I say my name first again? I didn't mean to say.
Of course you did.
We got my man Vince Butts. We got Ray Porter Jr. Ray Porter Jr. We got my man Coach William Greg Hoyt. Coach, I always switch your name around. So it's William Greg Hoyt Jr., correct?
Hey, brother. As long as
the
envelope is right.
He's trying to keep from saying junior, man. He's trying to keep
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. And then we have Miss Nicole Hutchison and Tiffany Hoyt. And brothers, I'm going to tell you, this show today, I'm going to be smiling from ear to ear because these two young ladies right here, man, if it wasn't for Howard University and Howard University football, first and foremost, I would have never met them. But the mere fact that we were all involved in Howard University sports and these two young ladies, incredible. Not only are they athletes, but at the same time, they participated in the coverage and helped actually develop the coverage that Howard University was doing with this sports program. Specifically, I'll start with Tiffany first. Tiffany, as a freshman, met her. She was videotaping. If I'm not mistaken, Tim, you correct me on this story. She's videotaping for the football team. Really, really humble, coming on campus, and nobody knew how intelligent she was. Like, what I mean by that is, like, she doesn't look like she's not intelligent. It's just the depth of the knowledge she had about football and other sports. Until she spoke, you never would have known, right? And then Tim goes from being a videographer to actually being the color commentator for the football games, which was incredible. I called her the queen of the airwaves.
Right now.
Tiffany Hoyt is joining us today. And then you have Miss Nicole Hutchison. So one day while Tiff and I are working, I remember Nicole Stevens, who was working with us. I look up, here comes another Nicole, and I'm like, wait a minute, who's this young lady? And it's Nicole Hutchison, who's a tennis player, by the way. But she was actually helping us with our coverage for the football season. And then she went down and started doing her own thing. So you have Miss Nicole Hutchison, who, by the way, and I'm not going to say the station, you can say it yourself, who is, there you go, KLB in Louisiana, doing her thing as a sports anchor. Kudos to you, Miss Hutchison, and welcome. And I think you have your own TV on is it Hutch in the Clutch? Did I get it right? Hutch in the Clutch.
Yeah.
Which is just phenomenal. So, gentlemen, we're blessed with 2 stars. Definitely 2 stars with us today. Both of them HBCU alum and Howard University alum. So kudos to them. And most gracious lady of the pink and green, Miss Hutchison. Welcome. I see you. See, there you go, sis. There you go, sis. Go ahead, represent.
Maybe that's the big love.
Lots of fun.
I'm just getting that coach over there because coach is a noob. So it's like I got to mess with him every show. So first and foremost, let's get at it. On Thursday, the SIAC and the CIAA announced that they are suspending fall sports. The basis for them suspending fall sports was for the protection of everybody involved. I always said, I've been saying since March, since the shutdown of the MEAC tournament, the basketball tournament, that I don't think there's going to be a football season. We haven't gotten there yet. But ladies, I want you two to weigh in on that. From your perspectives, what are you seeing and what do you anticipate happening from this point forward? Start with you first, Nicole.
Okay. Me personally, I think it's still a little bit too soon to be making these decisions. I know for me specifically in Louisiana, we're still planning to play fall sports. So we're still planning for a football season as far as like high school sports. But as far as collegiate sports, I think that it's still a little bit too soon because you should still look at the fact that these athletes need to play, you know, I mean, especially for seniors, it's very important that they play this season. So, you know, I just think that it's still a little too early. If they should at least look to make adjustments in the season rather than just flat out canceling. But then you have to also look at the health of the student athletes. That still comes first. So that's just my take on it.
All right, good stuff. You and I get ready to get into it in a second, but that's okay. Go ahead, Tiff. How you feel, Tiff?
I mean, I see what Nicole is saying because it's very true. A lot of these athletes A lot of your free agents in most sports, women and male sports, they're going to need this season, their senior season. But the NCAA is already talking about giving these athletes a year back if they don't play, which would which would alleviate that issue. I think the greater issue is the health of the athletes, and not only the athletes, but can the universities, like I know most of our HBCUs, they can't afford the lawsuit that may come from someone contracting coronavirus at a practice or at a game in travel. They can't afford it. And because that's uncharted territory as far as what the legal ramifications are going to be due to exposing these athletes and fans, I don't think it's worth the risk. So if we have to sit out a season so that these programs don't lose their shirt because they had an athlete that got coronavirus or they had a parent who came to a game and got coronavirus, we don't know what the legal ramifications are going to be. So we can't risk it.
Honestly, I think everything could have just been a whole lot better if, the country would have just stayed shut down for the time being up until like mid-July, and then we could have, made different, adjustments. But I still stand on what I say.
Right, we should have closed down. That's the moral of the story. We should have just stayed our tails in the house.
Right, but we know that's too much like right with the country that we're in.
Well, go ahead, Vince. You gonna say something?
I agree. I think I agree with Nicole. I think that schools probably should take a wait and see approach instead of shutting down right now. Because you still have a little bit of ways to go before you have to shut down. So I feel like you should just kind of like see how things go. You bring in athletes back on to campus, as a lot of schools are starting to do that now, and you kind of see how things go. I think if you bring the kids back now, and kids test positive, you can quarantine them for 2 weeks, and then get a chance to reacclimate them to the college campus again and workouts and everything. So I think if you do it early enough, then you can save things later on.
Coach, go ahead and weigh in on that, Coach.
Well, I've been really fortunate enough to be on a bunch of these podcasts, a bunch of these calls with college coaches around the country, and I just think that the lower tier schools, including HBCUs, they just don't have the budget to mobilize the transition from student athletes coming back to campus. So what some of the bigger schools are doing, they're bringing the athletes back in sections, okay, and providing all these safeguards, which I know a lot of the support mechanisms and the resources they don't have those readily available at the smaller schools like HBCU. So a school like LSU, I know Nicole's down there, they're putting their athletes out, they're bringing them back in sections, and then they're actually having transformed their whole entire weight room. They're putting it in the actual football field, and they're chalking off lines. They have an exit when you exit the stadium a certain kind of way. They're exiting, they're coming in, they're like not letting them dap anymore. They're putting them in pods. So if you're like in group one, you stay in group one, okay? Instead of 4 guys being in the dorm room, now there's only 2 guys in the pod of 4, in a room of 4. So a lot of those resources that are afforded to the bigger schools are not afforded to some of the smaller division schools like the HBCU, and they don't have a support staff, let alone the medical staff that's readily available on ready 24 hours a day. And then the testing component is they're testing their student athletes every 2 days. Who's going to pay for that? Those resources have to come from somewhere. And if you're not running a profitable program yet, or you're still kind of battling with just raising money for your program, that money has to come from somewhere to test those student athletes. And then what happens when someone does test positive in the program? So there's a lot of things that they're doing at the larger schools, at the Power 5 schools, that just don't have the resources like at a HBCU, at a Savannah State, or at a Delaware State. They just don't have the resources for that.
Right. Now, I know that we started this off talking about the SIAC and the CIAA suspending fall sports. Of course, Morehouse was at the forefront of that when they suspended their fall season. The Ivy League shut it down this week as well,
Right.
which I think is interesting. But I want to pose this to you all. As I'm saying this, I'm keeping in mind, and keep in mind, it was just reported on Thursday too that the Big Ten Conference is only going to play conference games
Yeah.
moving forward if they should have a football season.
Yeah.
Ohio State has stopped their workouts
As well as
earlier
Pac-12,
this week.
as well as
Go
And
ahead.
the ACC as well, I believe.
Yeah.
And the
They're
AC,
playing conference games for the ACC.
see, and that's interesting because even with the ACC, I think they're saying that their season would start 2 weeks later. They're proposing it being pushed back 2 weeks. Now, this is my thing, you all. All of this is nonsense because think about it this way. If you're thinking about the true health of the students and the student athletes, then you would have shut it down a long time ago and said, okay, let's get this straight. Let's get the vaccine or whatever we're going to do or get this out of the way, and then we'll address having a season. I think all of us talking about all of this for everybody across the board, it's just talk. Because when the bottom line, when it comes down, when the deadline comes to make that decision, if you don't have a vaccine in place to get people healthy, this is going to be all for naught. Because even, and Coach, you talked about the pods, and I agree with that. And Nicole, I love you to death, but I disagree with everything you just said because it's this. I think of it this way.
Mhm.
Even though we go through all the precautions, and I think the president from Morehouse pointed this out, and even I think even with the SIAC and the CIAA, they're pointing it out now. You still cannot protect the students as they travel. Some students are going across state lines to hot spots in states. Louisiana is a hot spot. Texas is the hot spot. Then not only that, but these dudes and young ladies are about to step on a basketball court, on a soccer field, on a football field to interact with other individuals. You can test yourself 100 times. I don't care. A virus is a virus. And now you're in a, especially football, a contact sport?
Yeah,
Are you kidding
especially
me?
football.
Go ahead, Nicole. Go ahead. Go ahead.
For the past 5 months, it's been 5 months since this is, I guess, the COVID actually hit. We have all been, supposed to be quarantining. Nobody been quarantining around this country. I mean,
I have.
and it's going to continue to be the same exact way. No one's going to actually be quarantining. They're still expecting students to go to school. I mean, at this point, you might as well start athletics. Like, it's pretty much the same thing.
Just because they're out, though,
Right.
doesn't mean it's going to be. Doesn't mean it's right.
It's not right. It's not right. But I'm saying that it's literally the same thing.
It's inevitable.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Well, let me ask these fairly new college grads. Okay, you're 20 years old. You're at homecoming week. Okay, are you gonna stay in quarantine?
Repeat that again, Coach. I think you.
Well, I was like, at Howard?
I'm asking. I mean, if you're on campus, are you gonna go out?
Howard's home can be shut down.
No, I'm just.
I mean, are you just saying in general? If you can't go anywhere, and they basically closed everything now, that's in DC. The fact of the matter is, the world of, meaning like America, we are supposed to be shut down. So as people open things up and more people contract the virus, it doesn't matter if we want to go outside. Is it safe to go outside? And if there are people who are accountable for us.
That sounds good for TV, but I know I was 19, I was 20 years old, and I was like in college, and somebody's having a party down in the dorm. Oh, the volleyball girls are back on campus. Let's go. Come on.
Oh, Nicole and Tiffany, you better not let me hear about you going to a party because the party's happening right now. You got to get out.
No, we're far too intelligent for that. Maybe if we know the group.
Okay, so now there's qualifications if you know them, huh? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, it's no different. It's no different than you getting a group of your people that like we've been in the same place, which is nowhere, and we're gonna connect. But that's totally different than starting college athletics. That's a whole nother thing. Like Trevor, what you were saying, you're asking these people to cross into hot spots and get on to courts, fields, whatever, with people they don't know, who are around people they don't know, who come into contact. That's all like, it sounds great, oh, we're going to put them in some pods, and because they're in pod 1, then we can contain it to pod 1 if they get it. But the fact of the matter is, the likelihood of you getting it is way higher. I think that if people want this virus to go away, or want there to be time for our antibodies to build up, whatever needs to happen, then it doesn't make sense to come out of an August quarantine, because we're going to be in quarantine in August, to fall football. That just doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's all craziness to me. It's Urban Media Today Talk Sports. We play a full game here. That's the end of the first quarter. It goes that fast. It definitely does. We have Nicole Hutchison, and we have Tiffany Hoyd joining us. Of course, you know Coach Hoyd Jr. over there. I'm so tired of saying Jr. because we got Ray Porter Jr. over here as well. And he got my man Vince Butts. We're going to take a quick break and come back after this time out on Urban Media Today Talk Sports. Urban Media Today Talk Sports. We got man Ray Porter Jr. We got Coach Hoyd Jr. over there. I want to get the juniors over. Then you got my man Vince Butts. We have Nicole Hutchison and Tiffany Hoyd. Nicole and Tiffany, introduce yourselves. I didn't give you a chance to at the beginning of the game. I got excited because you're here. So Tiff, we'll start with you first, and then we'll go to Nicole. Because Tiff is a writer. I mean, she's a broadcaster. Shut up. Go ahead, Tiff. Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Look, I don't even know how to introduce myself anymore without the Howard intro. Well, my name is Tiffany Hoyd. I graduated Howard University in May of last year. I started working with MLB Network. And while I was in school, I was a color commentator for the men's basketball and women's basketball teams. I was a color commentator for the men's football team, or for the football team. I worked with Howard football all 4 years as a manager, putting together a staff of people to kind of make that mission come to. At Howard, I also worked with Undefeated. I was a school communications major, and now I'm headed to law school at North Carolina Central University.
Woohoo!
Doing big things.
Congratulations.
Miss Nicole,
Awesome.
you're up.
Dang, I was going to say I'll do my same Howard intro. My name is Nicole
Right.
Hutchison. Touch in the clutch. Hutchison.
Right.
I'm from Houston, Texas, and I graduated from Howard University with a broadcast journalism degree, sports management minor. I actually worked for Howard Athletics. I was a sideline reporter and videographer for football, basketball. I did some volleyball, but I also played college tennis there. And I worked.
She was really good.
Thanks too.
Yes.
No, I interned with NBC Sports during my time there. ESPN, I was their Campus Connection reporter, and then Fox 26, a lot of other media outlets. I worked for the Redskins as well. So now I'm actually a sports reporter in Louisiana. So
there you go, doing your thing down in the
Right.
boot, as the coach called it. Well, wait a minute, Nicole.
Right.
Your father played pro football,
mm-hmm.
and who did he play for?
Chicago Bears.
What?
Yeah.
Hutchison?
Yeah.
Okay, that's incredible. See, these ladies are humble. They got all of this going on in their background, and they would never tell you. And by the way, the father of Miss Hoyd is on the cast too. That's Coach. Coach is playing for envelopes, so I know Coach is proud. Oh, Nicole, you missed it. Tiffany, you missed it because Coach was bragging you up big time when you got the acceptance letter for SCCU law. Oh man,
He couldn't contain himself.
yeah, he was floating so high, it's almost like he floated out of the screen. We were trying to bring him back down, like, yo, Coach, just. But congrats on that as well.
Big things, man. Change generational opportunities, man. I mean, you see so many parents with their children and stuff like that. So you have to celebrate. You know, it's good to celebrate, both my son and my daughter for what they've done. And so, you know what? If nobody going to brag about them, I'm going to be beating the drum. I'm going to be in the background. I'm going to be their theme music in the background. You know what I'm saying? Remember that movie? Yeah, I'm going to be their theme music in the background. So, nobody's cheering for him. I'm going to be cheering for him. So, that's how it's always been.
That's how it should be, too, Coach.
That's how it should be.
That's
I do
definitely how it
agree.
should be. We were talking about COVID-19 is impacting on sports, and we talked about the CIAA and the SIAC announcing on Thursday that they were suspending the fall season. We were getting deeper into the conversation, and we are talking about how the athletes, how I think just me, Trevin A. Jones, I think there's not going to be a football season. And the reason I say that is because I think that the health of these athletes is just that important. But I do agree with something that Tiffany and Nicole both said, was that the senior season is very important for the young ones coming out of college. It's your senior year. And the interesting thing is, and you guys can comment on this, even though you'll get the year of eligibility back, as far as your schooling is concerned and life, the steps that you're taking in life, sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, you as an athlete might not be able to even take advantage of the year of eligibility in sport because you're moving forward in professionalism in life, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that comes to play, but most athletes who are going to need their senior year, they're not necessarily, need their senior year to be on professional sports teams' radar. They're not necessarily high draft picks. And with that being said, like, they take the risk of not being drafted at all. And so, yeah, you have to look at their chances, their odds, and they have to make a conscious decision, because this is uncharted territory, as we all have to make new decisions and say, okay, am I going to just continue to play football or continue to play whatever sport I'm playing while I live on campus and not go to classes, or do I get a master's, whatever? But that'll just be a decision they have to make. Like, we all will have to make new uncharted decisions in this coming year.
I don't think, these kids don't really care about school. I honestly have to, they don't. They're worried about playing football, basketball, and trying to leave to go to the draft. That's my opinion. I think that the senior season counts for all these athletes. I think it's important for all of them, whether they're, on their draft radar or not. I think it's very important. And I don't know. It would just be a lot different if they had to wait to play their senior season a year after they were technically supposed to be preparing to go to the draft,
Everybody doesn't go pro. And Nicole, you're in sport, you're in football, so you know the tragic stories of all those guys who don't finish school because they want to leave early, or they're trying to go pro. And as well as you guys, Trevor, you guys cover HBCUs. There's a lot of guys that they don't have anything to go back home to. They're trying so bad, they're trying so hard to get to the league or some professional team that they lose sight of what the real envelope is. And that's going pro in life. These young ladies right here, they're already gone pro a year removed from college. And they already turned pro. Nicole's her thing out in Louisiana, just doing her thing in Jersey. So when we look at the grand scheme of things, is which I really preach in my recruiting service, is that the real envelope is utilizing the assets that you have on campus, utilizing the scholarship that's been afforded to you if you're on scholarship, to engage with the university, build your brand, build a relationship to get the internships, whatever workshops are on campus, just so you can go pro in whatever other thing, whether it be if you're going to be an engineer, get ready to design the next stadium. If you're going to be a doctor, press in a little bit to, the medical staff to do an internship. These are things that I'm really talking to my recruits about, and parents, that when you go to college, yeah, it's dope. It's Gucci to go and play and ball out, but you really better understand that, you're on the clock. It's going to end for you. And I'm pretty sure, Nicole, you played tennis. It ended, there was a time competitive wise, it ended, and you saw it coming, right? You probably didn't want to say it, but it came, and it came really fast. And so you made a pivot, a great pivot, to go into what you really wanted to do.
And I agree with that. I completely 100% agree with that. That sounds fantastic. But I'm different from a lot of other athletes. I knew I was not going pro. I was not going to US Open. I have to be real with myself, okay? But there's still a lot of athletes that you can't really install that into. There's athletes now that are 2 years out from college still trying to live the football life. So you can't really say that, they should use their time wisely, doing internships, trying to get that paper, that envelope, like you said, because a lot of them are still so focused on football to where that's still going to be their end goal,
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's the unfortunate mindset of an athlete. Not every athlete, but some athletes, because they're such hard workers, and to be great at your craft and to truly like make it to that next level, I think you do have to have a little bit of tunnel vision like that. But unfortunately, eventually we all have to wake up, and sadly they have to wake up a little earlier than some people if it doesn't end up working out. But this is all counting on the fact of we're gonna risk the health of all student athletes, right? For the 2% that is going to make it their senior year.
Wow.
Professional.
I didn't even think about it that way. That's interesting. And Vince and Ray, you guys, and for everybody on the panel here, Vince and Ray, Vince takes pictures for us for Urban Media Today at urbanmediatoday.com and Urban Media Today Sports. So you're covering Pitt, you're covering the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're covering everything college for us as well. And Ray is a writer for us as well. So he's covering Pitt, he's covering the Steelers, he's covering the Pirates. They're both covering all sports in every realm. And we do cover HBCU sports as well. But Vince and Ray, I have this to pose to you guys. Is this a good thing or a bad thing that, okay, we want to go ahead and play, or no, we should hold off?
Well, I think the COVID-19 is in one sense is a good thing, because it's forced a lot of athletes to put things in perspective. You know, a lot of athletes have had to at least think about pivoting in a different direction and making sure some other things are in a row, just in case this football thing doesn't work out. And my experience with a lot of these athletes, and most of them are in school, they're using football or basketball for a bigger goal, and it's not necessarily to go pro. But if that comes, they're absolutely gonna try to attain that. And like Tiffany said, these athletes for the longest time have had tunnel vision, and we applaud them for having that drive to strive and reach this goal, to go from one level to the next. We applaud them all the time. So there has to be, it's something good in that, but I think this coronavirus thing this pandemic has forced us to look at things a little bit differently, and I think a lot of athletes are looking at it differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
totally
look
agree.
Look at the financial ramifications that, I mean, coaches are taking pay cuts.
Right.
The stress level of free agency is incredible right now. These guys that are trying to make a team, these guys that are trying to re-up their contracts, the stress level is crazy. I got a bunch of guys that I know that are trying to make teams, and I got guys that have not signed their free agent tender, and they're up. They're on 1 year tenures, NFL, and they're quiet as a church mouse right now. They're sitting on pins for the stress level. I mean, you look at Coach Gundy at Oklahoma State. He took $1 million pay cut. That's a pretty big pay cut. How many of us from our job right now would take a pay cut? Anybody on this call take a pay cut like that? I mean, or take a percentage pay cut? That's a pretty hefty pay cut. Now, he did it to support his staff and to keep some of the things kind of going, but Iowa State, they cut 40% of the entire staff. They cut their 40% of their pay. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, isn't that an incentive? You have a financial incentive for not just players, but coaches, front office. You have a lot of different people who rely on these paychecks for this football season and ultimately basketball down the line. That's a lot of pressure to want to get back out and get things back to normal. I think a lot of people are willing to risk, what comes with it to get that paycheck.
But that's saying, like, I'll risk being a stripper, you know what I mean? Because, it's all good, right? Get them ones, right?
Did he just say stripper? Did Coach just say stripper? All right, hold on. We're going to take a quick break. It's halftime.
Baby,
So moves that fast. 412-709-6130 is the number to call. 412-709-6130. Urban Media Today, Talk Sports. Coach, don't forget that thought. We'll come back to it. We're going to take a quick break. We play 4 quarters here as the end of the second quarter. So we're at halftime. We're going to come right back after this brief timeout.
Urban Media Today is your source for entertainment, news, sports, and lifestyle. It's your online resource for health and fitness, providing tips to decrease your heart disease or increase your good spirits. When you can't find who made the top picks in HBCU sports or what part of the country is most exciting or affordable to travel with the entire family, Urban Media Today is there to provide you with all that you need and just a click away. Log on to urbanmediatoday.com now. Find us on social media. Urban Media Today, your lifestyle information and blog website.
Urban Media Today talks sports. Nicole Hutchison in the house. You got Tiffany Hoyd also joining us. You got Ray Porter Jr. I don't know why I say Ray's name like that. I just have fun doing it. Then you got Vince Butts and you got Coach.
It serves its purpose, trust me.
You, man.
I do have something to say, though.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, we're going to go ahead and let you start the third quarter. Go ahead and comment on what we were talking about as far as athletes in this COVID-19.
And first, I just wanted to say just congratulations to Tiffany and Nicole. It's such a blessing. And I love the energy that y'all both bring. You can see it, you feel it, and it's a blessing. And it's very charging and encouraging. When I throw some of it to my 12-year-old son, I should just call him up in here. But I appreciate that, because that's something to look up. That's inspiration. It very much is, and that's a blessing for real.
Like that towel on your shoulder, but go ahead.
Yeah, especially the towel on my shoulder, and truthfully, Trevor has his own too, but he doesn't want to, But I respect what everybody's saying, and I appreciate it. My viewpoints toward the athletes, and it is true, just what Vincent said. And I know as an athlete, it's hard. Because this is your time. This is your time to be doing the summer camps with your football. And this is your time because it's now July and you're getting closer and closer to the start of what should have been the regular season for college football and eventually for the NFL and all. But, when you're dealing with a virus, it does add a new perspective to it all. And it's a risk. It's a risk because they're doing all that they can for practicing. But what can you do when you actually play? Like you said, Trevor. On a football field, on a basketball court, on a soccer, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm for, in my public enemy voice, shutting it down. I'm for it. And it's a risk all the way around. I can't say I know what it's like when you're a corporation and you have to make hard decisions, but let's be honest. It's hard all around. You have to make the hard decisions. And so I'm for them not playing just for that risk. And I think that the Ivy League, Big Ten, and HBCU, in that conference is making the right decisions. And I think the NFL needs to make that right decision too. And
so this is kind of a side note. Did you guys see the little beeper that the NBA has for each player in the bubble? So if you like are a certain amount of feet away, it measures if you're 6 feet away or if you get anywhere closer than, less than 6 feet away, it starts beeping.
But,
yeah.
But you know what? Let me ask you this question, though. How do you do that when you're actually on a court or on a football field?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you don't have
unless they have like installed and, I don't know.
I know we got new defense, but I don't think anybody needs to be 6 feet away from their man.
Ain't no 3-4, no 4-4 up in there.
I don't care what you call it.
It's gonna be layup lines the whole game. Layup line, right? You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Okay, you lay up. Okay, I'll get the rebound. Okay, now pass the rebound. Okay.
And then, can I also say this too? And then as a media person, I'm not comfortable sitting up in the press box.
No. That's what nobody's talking about, right? Go ahead.
Where the space is right here. You know what I'm talking about, Vincent, Trevor, and all of y'all know what I'm talking about. Whereas the pit games, sometimes you can practice it. Sometimes it's full, sometimes it's empty, and I'm just being real. But Steeler games, we're neck and neck. You can fit 250 people up in there, but still, it's a nice big press box, but it's a nice big press box with a lot of people. That's something we have to consider. And I'm waiting for them to hear me say more in reference to media relations with that, but obviously they're waiting to hear what the leagues are doing, so I can understand.
And that's a perfect segue for me because I'll throw it right to Tiffany and Nicole. You guys are actually covering. I mean, I know you worked with the MLB Network. I think both of you worked with the MLB Network, didn't you?
Yeah.
You worked with the MLB Network. And then when you're doing the sports coverage, nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the professionals that are covering the sports and how close you may have to be and how many people in a room. And especially when it comes to football season and a press box. Baseball's kind of easy. You got 2 people up there, so you can have 6 feet between them if you want, I guess. Or you can call the games via Zoom where they're both watching the game and call it, and you can do it that way. But when it comes to football, that's a little different. Tiff and Nicole, weigh in on that one.
I think there's right now just kind of focused on the players first. And then I guess depending on what they decide as far as whether there's a season or not, then they'll kind of weigh in on how the media should go about handling their jobs. So, I mean, I honestly don't know what we would do if we had to be 6 feet away from LSU players, because I know when we do, press conferences and stuff, it's not like a major press conference. It's kind of just like you go up to a media scrum, you go up to players and you're all up in their faces. So it's kind of like, how are they going to handle this now? Unless they just do, like a big press conference after the games. But that's kind of like hectic getting all the media in there after games. And I don't know.
I heard that for me as a photographer being on the field, I think they'll allow us on, so many of us onto the field. But I heard there'll be no locker room access. So media won't go into the locker room. I imagine if they allow press to be in the stadium, I imagine they'll do some sort of lottery system or something where they alternate games or something, so you won't have a full complement of media press in the press box. Some people just have to do it by Zoom or whatever, or watch it on TV and then commentate from there or whatever. I think the TBT just had their they played basketball this past weekend, and I don't think there were much media present. And I was given media credentials, and they fed us different media credentials, different information before the game. They made Zoom. They made us available for Zoom conferences. Certain players were available, so we're able to interview players by Zoom, and then use. They had photographers there, so we could use their photos if we chose to. We have media information available to us afterwards, and to me, that may be how at least media will be able to handle some of the games.
Tiff, what do you think?
I mean, just off the top of my head, it's going to be a very, very tough year to be a communications director. It's going to be very tough because you're not going to be able to put all those people in the locker room, like Nicole was saying. So with that being said, you're going to have to make sure you have every media contact who wants to be there, who wants to be a president for that. And then you're going to look at something where people are going to put their name in, even though they wouldn't actually show up to an event. But you as media director are going to have to send them out all the press release. You're going to have to create a whole new way of distributing news to these outlets, because that's the only way you're going to get the stories you need. Because only one publication can go in that locker room if you allow anyone in that locker room.
Right. And
it's just going to be a whole – that's why you can't have it. You can't have sports because there's just so many different pieces that are not going to be able to come to. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess.
Mess without sports.
I was going to ask you this, Nicole, because I know I've seen you cover high school sports as well. So even when you're dealing with the high school sports coverage, I mean, that has to be different when you're thinking about COVID-19 being involved.
It is a lot different. I mean, it's crazy because I enjoy covering high school sports a lot more. Not a lot more, but technically a lot more than I do like college sports. Only because you really get to see these players grow, and then you see them go and commit to their colleges and things like that. So, I mean, it'll really be different though with, this whole virus thing. And they actually in Louisiana, so they just released a statement saying yesterday that they're committed to, playing football. I don't know how they're going to do it, but the LHSA is going to figure out how to do it.
That's somebody's kids. I don't get it. I'm gonna wait for Tip to come back. I know she can still hear us before we talk about the next topic, but
Sorry, guys.
I don't see it. Oh, okay. Tip is back real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna shift gears real quick. McCord Maker coming to Howard.
Yes, sir.
Corey Foreman, one of the top defensive linemen in the country, and this is where you're coming in too, Coach. Where I want to make reference to you. One of the top defensive linemen in the country added Howard University to his list, which was originally 6, but recently he added Howard, which means he's narrowed it down to 7 schools.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies, being Howard University alumni, I have to hear how you think about how this may shift the whole HBCU paradigm as far as interest from top athletes.
Yeah. Tech, you want to answer that?
Either one.
Oh, I'm just happy to hear people not say there are more HBCUs than Howard. It seems like we're all on the same page right now, and we know that a win for Howard is a
few
win for
people
HBCU.
saying something. I'm like, I've heard a few people saying that. I'm just like,
You have? See, I was expecting Twitter to blow up after the Maker committal because I was like, all right, they love coming for Howard's head. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is a very good look for HBCUs. I mean, of course, for Howard, we're used to things like this.
Oh, excuse me. Excuse me.
But, yeah, I mean, in general, it's amazing. I think that if we build together as a people, especially in the billion-trillion-dollar industry that is sports, imagine the money that we can get from one game of a one televised game if Zion had come to Howard. We could redo our whole facilities. That's what separates us from the Power Fives. Money.
Wow. Okay. What about you?
I'm
What you guys
going to agree with that because I know Corey's a pretty hot topic. Football. Right. I just think football is maybe a few cycles away from getting those 5 stars. I think we're probably a little ways away, but because basketball, you can go play for 1 year and be one and done. Okay. Baseball, you can go play for 3 years. Volleyball, you can play in 2 years and go to Olympics. So there's some opportunities there, HBCUs, to quickly, shrink the gap. But football, there's going to be probably a couple cycles. But I think that there's so many athletes, good athletes, overlooked, and that's where I come in with my company. It's just trying to identify these athletes to let them know, don't believe the hype. These HBCUs are Division I. They do offer full ride scholarships because the biggest lie told about some of these HBCUs is they don't offer scholarships, they don't play D1, and that's all a falsehood. That's all basically bad propaganda that's been smeared out there because they want these kids to go to these obscure schools in the middle of Iowa, in the middle of the weeds, where they can go to a school where everybody looks like them. It's part of a city. There's family around it. It's like I really talk about this a couple weeks ago on one of my podcasts was that the HBCU is kind of like the mecca for blacks. If we were to treat HBCUs like our history, like we don't come from Africa, we all come from Langston, we all come from Wiley College, we all come from Payne, we all come from Howard, Norfolk. If we treat that as a black community, send our resources back there, if we just, if everybody just imagine, everybody took $25 out of their check and sent it to an HBCU, we would dominate. And there was so much history that could be, given to our young, especially our young black males, because they're right now they're being targeted, and we need somebody to encourage them. We need a HBCU, we need a place where they can land, where mentors like these guys on here, you guys that can mentor and give these passes to these young black athletes, that they can be more than just an athlete. Okay, they can be sports commentators. They can be, but we got to be able to put our resources behind these meccas. And I'm saying, I know Howard is considered the mecca, but all these schools that are the mecca, the Lincolns, all these schools that offer the HBCU experience, the dating pools, the fraternity life, right now, the diversity inclusion right now with corporations, they're throwing money like crazy money after this. That money to come to our HBCUs so we can take advantage of that and create a passage for, instead of a passage for prison, we create a passage for education for access, for learning history, and having self-worth.
So wouldn't the best time for HBCUs to recruit, wouldn't that be homecoming? Like, I mean,
That's
like
how I think we got a maker.
Right. So, I mean, so the feeling when I read how he felt when he stepped on to the campus and it was homecoming and he felt like family, he felt like it was a fit for him. I think for a lot of African American athletes, that would be the perfect opportunity to see yourself. When you look across and you see people that look just like you, and all different shades and colors and sizes and different backgrounds. And so that feeling, like when I stepped onto Pitt's campus as a freshman, I felt, in one sense, I felt out of place. I had to go find, all the black males and the black females to feel some semblance of me. And so stepping onto, for these 3, 4, 5-star athletes, I think that would be the perfect opportunity for HBCUs to sell their campus and sell that experience.
Well, and that's a good point. And I'm going to take a quick break, Coach. At the end of the third quarter, it runs that fast. 15 minutes is up. Don't lose that train of thought, you all. We're going to take a quick break and come right back. We're talking about HBCUs and recruiting right now. It's Urban Media Today Talk Sports. We'll be right back after this timeout.
Urban Media Today is your source for entertainment, news, sports, and lifestyle. It's your online resource for health and fitness, providing tips to decrease your heart disease or increase your good spirits. When you can't find who made the top picks in HBCU sports or what part of the country is most exciting or affordable to travel with the entire family, Urban Media Today is there to provide you with all that you need and just a click away. Log on to urbanmediatoday.com now. Find us on social media. Urban Media Today, your lifestyle information and blog website.
Urban Media Today Talk Sports. We have Nicole Hutchison. We have Tiffany Hoyd, Coach Hoyd, Greg Hoyd, and Vince Butts, and Ray Porter Jr. Talking HBCUs, 5-star recruits actually putting HBCUs on their radar, which has been interesting. Vince was talking about going to Pitt and having to actually do a search to find people that look like him so he can feel some type of, what would it be? I want to put words in your mouth. So you can feel welcome?
I mean, it's something to look at, to hang out with people that look like you. You feel a different connection. I mean, I feel like everyone should try to get onto a college campus because the experience is out of this world. The friends, the connections you make when you step onto a college campus is like no other. But to be able to see other students not just look like you, but are striving for the same things you are. It helps you put things in perspective and helps you to fit in onto a huge campus. I mean, I think when I was at Pitt, I think we were less than 10% of the student population, probably way less than that. And so to create or find a brotherhood meant something. And I think if you're an athlete now and you're looking for that connection, going to a homecoming event is a perfect opportunity to kind of find out how you fit in.
I was joking.
Go ahead, Coach. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nicole.
No, I was joking on Twitter when the news came out about Maker, and I was like, oh man, if we get 4 more from the ESPN Top 100, we can have a new Fab Five. And, I was like, all right, chill out. But I mean, I think it's just fascinating to see, that caliber of a player going to an HBCU, because at the end of the day, I think Howard was like, 4 and 29?
4 and 29. Yeah, 4 and 29.
And they haven't even had an NCAA bid since 92, 91? So
90,
I was just like, if anything, he's risking a lot more than Howard, So it's going to take not just him, though, to make this step. It's going to have to be Mikey whenever it's him time to graduate, I think in 23, to actually not talk about it on Twitter, actually make the commitment. I think, Bronny James has North Carolina Central or A&T and Howard.
A&T.
Yeah, so it's gonna take not just him to commit. It's gonna be we got a long ways to go before we make this Black Lives Matter movement for all top recruits going to HBCUs. I think we have a long way to go, but it's definitely possible. And it put us on a high pedestal. I mean, I think this was really big for us.
I feel like
Go ahead, Tiff. Go ahead. And then Coach, then you go ahead. Go ahead, Tiff.
HBCUs, like HBCU graduates, people who are aware of HBCUs, I feel like we're sitting on the best secret in the world, but we're willing to tell everyone, but nobody wants to listen to us. Like, we have the treasure, an HBCU experience, like that this is the experience you want and need. A lot of us, most Black people in America, we grow up in white neighborhoods. We're always feeling like there's something wrong with us, or there's something different. I don't care how sure our parents make us of ourselves, there's always something missing there. The HBCU provides that. I think in the last, I'd say 6-7 years, we've seen a boost in general students going to HBCUs, general African-American kids throughout the country. And it's gonna increase now that we have athletes talking about it. But it's irritating to me because I know I heard the lie. Like, before I went to Howard, I was like, Howard and HBCU? I'm better than HBCU. I don't want to go there. It would have been the biggest mistake I ever made in my life if I listened to that. I mean, I would just be completely frank with you guys, that white is right mentality, that HBCUs cannot give you what you need to be successful. I know people who went to HBCUs who look like me. They're not doing half of what I've done, what my friends are doing. We are the best kept secret. And we want to tell everyone. We want to tell you, just come to an HBCU, because the access you're going to get from the career services, like, our employment rates are high. Why would you go anywhere else?
90% of the Black judges in the country come from HBCU, right? 90% of the doctors that are surgeons come from HBCUs. So there's data there. So here's what I'm dealing with, though. As I talk to parents, a lot of parents think that Blacks that go to these HBCUs are bougie, or they have a lot of money. At Spelman, at Howard. So some of the parents are like, well, we don't have the money because they come from maybe distressed, economically devastated backgrounds. They go, well, my son or my daughter won't be able to compete there because they're going to school with, whomever, is the hot fad right there. I know Common's daughter was going to Howard. So some parents were like, well, I don't really want my daughter to go because we don't have the money like that. And I had to kind of debunk that and tell the parents, like, hey, listen, everybody doesn't have money. Everybody's not a millionaire that goes to Spelman or Howard. You got to understand it. Everybody's not a millionaire that goes to Morehouse. Some of these athletes, some of these students are they're really good in class. They had access to grant aid and scholarships, and they're there surviving. But you can't tell because there's so much love there at HBCUs. But they think everybody is glamorized and everybody's, of course, Howard's going to definitely times 10. Everybody's going to step out looking like just, they're just doing the most. But you got to definitely educate the parents, and I do that often. Like, hey, listen, here's an opportunity to have access. It doesn't matter what background you come from because everybody's pulling for you. What's that song? I mean, Everything Black, right? I mean, that was a song that, like, you go to HBCU, everybody's pulling for you. The janitor's pulling for you because they look like you. The cook is pulling for you in the cafeteria. The dean of the department is pulling for you. They look like you. The teachers in the classrooms are pulling for you. And so we got to be able to kind of like change that propaganda, that bad press that's out there to say, you can have access. It's not a bad thing to go to that. But here's the other part about it. We got to be on an A game too, HBCUs. We can't come in. We can't have this, this choppy, hard, because some people just don't have it's such a new game for them. They don't have the patience to deal with, my financial aid didn't come on time, or my room is not ready, and it happens even at PWIs. I'm telling you that too. It happens at PWIs, but it's just, there's so much new first generation, especially in the Black community. It's overwhelming with some of the people. And some of the kids just flat out come back home because they just never experienced so much adversity. But let me tell you guys this, though, because I know Vince said it was awesome. So I went to Ole Miss, okay? When I went to Ole Miss, I spent more time at Fisk, Delta State, Alcorn, you know, all those places were like in driving distance for me. And I was like, oh, this is crazy, because coming from California, playing football at Division I level, it was cool to have, you know, play at the Division I level, but there was an underlying that was happening. I was able to drive down 55 to Xavier. I was able to go to all these places and see people that looked like me and people that were like doing it. And they weren't, you know, they were pulling for you. You know, they were pulling for you. They were dapping you up. They were going places. And that's what's exciting that we need to continue to share, not only with our urban Blacks, not only with our people that are our students that are at risk, but with everybody. And this is a platform here, Urban Media Day. We changed it. I mean, I think this is a great platform just to change the narrative on what it looks like.
One thing, kind of going off of what he said is what Coach Hoy, he also said, you know, that going to an HBCU teaches you really how to hustle. You know, I feel like I went to Howard and I like seeing everybody there that looks like you know, talks like you, acts like you, different shades, all that great stuff. I feel like seeing everybody doing, you know, on their stuff, doing whatever in whatever field that they want to go into, it kind of pushed me. So out the gate freshman year, I was like, all right, I gotta get together, you know? So I think that like going to an HBCU really teaches you that mentality. And the only thing though, as far as athletic wise, is that we gotta get our facilities up. That's what scares athletes away, is when you look at going to LSU and then you look at, Southern. I don't know, you know, and the perks that you get going to those top tier schools, it's just so much better. But then again, it starts with players like Maker, you know, making these commitments and hopefully doing something, you know, with the program to where other athletes are like, all right, you know what, man, I could go to an HBCU and, you know.
All right, so this is the part of the show where we go around the room. I want all of you to talk about what is ever on your mind, what's been prominent on your mind this week. Vince, we'll start with you first.
I hope that that guys like Corey Foreman end up choosing Howard and other HBCUs. I hope that these guys aren't scared of stepping out and stepping into something that would change their lives exponentially.
Ray Porter Jr., what you got?
In the limited news that is the NFL, apparently we know the one that stands out. Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP, he got his monies, and did he ever? 10-year contract, they say between $450 to $500 million, which is just it's insane. But I salute the brother for getting it.
Gotcha. Coach Hoyd, what you got, Coach?
Well, a couple things. I just first of all, you guys might I didn't get a chance to really introduce myself. My name is Coach Greg Hoyd. I own PlayingForEnvelopes.com. We're a national recruiting service. We help student athletes identify opportunities, scholarships. If you need help, reach out to us. You can go out to PlayingForEnvelopes.com, our website, fill out a questionnaire. We'll get back to you right away. Parents, I know you guys are dealing with a lot of stress level. Your high school students are at home. They're stressing out. Pay attention to them. I know mental health is really tough right now. There's a lot of things kind of going around, especially with what's going on with the George Floyd situation, the Black Lives Matters. A lot of these young athletes, they're nervous about walking around the streets because they kind of feel like targets. So pay attention to them because they're not going to be playing sports, so they're going to be doing something. So we need to basically pay attention, keep our arm around them. Anybody have opportunity, coaches, pay attention to your athletes, making sure that they're on task because this is a stressful time for athletes all over the country. And then,
in light of the Black Lives Matters movement for everybody in the media, so earlier I saw that the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sports, so they put out like the stats of how many whites were in sports editors, reporters, and columnists. And so sports editors 85%, sports reporters 82%, and sports columnists 80%. And this is all white dominant. And so I just want to keep I guess to say, I hope that Black reporters and upcoming Black columnists, writers, all of that, keep pushing because we're all trying to get to the top. I know in Louisiana, Central Louisiana, there's 4 Black sports reporters, and we're like the only ones there. So I would just, I just want to advise everybody Black, keep pushing in this industry because it's tough. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like we have a lot more talent than a lot of these white people do.
And Nick, you're where right now? KALB, correct?
Mm-hmm.
In Louisiana.
Yep.
All right, check her out, Houston native. Tiff, what you got, Tiff?
Man, well, first off, arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. That's one. And then the second thing that's kind of been on me, and it's kind of the reason I'm going to law school, is there's so much that needs to be done to end systemic racism, like Nicole was talking about, like we've all been talking about here today. And we need to do our part. Maker did his part. People are trying to do their part, but we don't need to try anymore. We need to walk about it, and we need to put ourselves in position of power to where we can make some serious changes. No longer can we wait around for other people to help us. We have to help ourselves. And with that being said, we need to help each other through this process. So
good stuff. I guess I got one thing to say. Today was the ultimate for me, because we're talking about HBCUs. That was the basis of our program. But going to Norfolk State, having the opportunity to hone my craft at Howard University, also gave me the experience and opportunity to work with young ladies like Nicole and Tiffany. So for me to be able to see and be able to share some of my talent and my knowledge with these two young ladies and see them, not because of me, but me being able to share in their journey and take their journey to the next level, and they're continuing to do so. Oh man, I'm like a proud father, and they're not even my children, but it just feels like they're my little sisters. And to see them take it and go to the level that they're going to, that, Coach, what you were talking about and what you were talking about, Vince, about HBCUs, that's what HBCUs are all about. You have that family feel, and that everybody is looking out for you and everybody has your back. But not only that, everybody's willing to share their expertise with you so that it can help you hone your craft. So thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Tiffany, because I'm like, man, I'm sitting here beaming right now. So we definitely got to stay in touch. You ladies have to come back again, because there's much more we need to talk about.
Urban Media Today talks sports every week on Urban Media Today Radio, where you can listen in on free music and podcasts on our SoundCloud station at Urban Media Today. And for more information, log on to urbanmediatoday.com, your lifestyle, entertainment, and sports blog website.
What type of games being played? How's it going down? I get up, all right?